Freedom. The word feels intoxicating, almost sacred. Every anthem sings about it, every politician promises it, every human being claims to desire it. But Jean-Paul Sartre, the dark French philosopher of the 20th century, saw something most people refuse to admit. Freedom is not a blessing. It is a burden. And the terrifying truth is this: most people cannot handle it. We like to imagine that if all chains were broken, if every authority loosened its grip, we would soar like eagles into the sky. But Sartre's voice cuts through this fantasy like a knife. He said that the moment you are free, the moment no one else dictates your choices, you are faced with a crushing reality. You alone are responsible for your life. There is no excuse left, no parent to blame, no God to rescue you, no system to absolve you. Only you, staring into the abyss of possibility. And that abyss is terrifying, because to be free means to stand naked before infinite choices, and infinite choices mean infinite ways to fail. Sartre called this sensation nausea, the dizziness of realizing you are condemned to be free. This is not the comforting philosophy of self-help books. This is not the freedom of patriotic speeches. This is the brutal recognition that freedom can paralyze, suffocate, and even destroy. And once you see this truth, you can never return to the illusion that life is simple. Jean-Paul Sartre was not a man who lived in comfort or illusion. Born in France in 1905, he came of age in a world scarred by war, political chaos, and the collapse of old certainties. He was not just a philosopher, but a playwright, novelist, and activist who lived his ideas fiercely, often recklessly. Sartre believed philosophy wasn't something you studied in the safety of an ivory tower. It was something you lived, bled, and sometimes suffered for. His greatest obsession was freedom. But unlike the poets and politicians who dressed it in noble light, Sartre ripped away the comforting mask and revealed its raw, unbearable truth. At the heart of Sartre's philosophy is a single sentence: man is condemned to be free. These 6 words contain both his brilliance and his terror. To be human for Sartre is to live without excuses. You cannot escape the fact that you are free, because even refusing to choose is itself a choice. You're never not choosing. Think about the implications of this. If you wake up and go to work at a job you hate, you are choosing it. If you remain in a loveless relationship, you are choosing it. If you stay silent when injustice happens before your eyes, you are choosing silence. And if you tell yourself you had no choice, Sartre would laugh, because the very act of surrendering, of obeying, of conforming, is itself a choice. This realization is like staring into a mirror that refuses to lie. You cannot hide. Every action, every hesitation, every compromise is authored by you. And that means you carry the weight of responsibility for everything you do and everything you fail to do. No one else. Not your parents. Not society. Not even God. Sartre believed this is why most people live in bad faith, a kind of self-deception where you pretend you are not free, where you tell yourself that life is fixed, determined, beyond your control. It's easier to say I can't than to face the abyss of I must choose. It's easier to blame fate, God, the government, or genetics than to look in the mirror and admit, I am free, and I alone am responsible for what I do with that freedom. Imagine this in your own life. Picture a man who stays in a soul-crushing job because he says, I have no choice, I have bills to pay. Sartre would respond, you do have a choice. You could leave, you could starve, you could rebuild, you could fight. Every option is open to you, but you don't want to bear the weight of choosing. So you tell yourself you are trapped, when really, you are afraid. Or imagine a woman who remains in a toxic relationship saying, I can't leave, I'm too dependent. Sartre would remind her that dependence is itself a choice. It may be terrifying, it may demand courage you don't want to summon, but the freedom remains. And with it, the responsibility. This is why Sartre called freedom a kind of condemnation. Because you cannot escape it. Even if you wish to run, even if you bury yourself in routine, even if you hide in ideologies or religions or social roles, freedom stalks you like a shadow. You can deny it, but you cannot kill it. The French philosopher Albert Camus, Sartre's contemporary and sometimes rival, spoke about the absurdity of life, the meaningless void we are thrown into. Sartre agreed, but went further. For Camus, the absurd was something to rebel against. For Sartre, the absurd was compounded by the fact that you must choose how to live in that void. No manual, no higher order, no divine script, just you. And here lies the nausea, the deep, unsettling dizziness Sartre described. Imagine standing before a cliff, looking down into endless darkness. That is what freedom feels like to Sartre. Because every moment, you are standing on that cliff, and you must decide, step forward, step back, jump, crawl, fly, or fall. And you cannot blame anyone else for what happens. The brutal clarity of Sartre's insight is why his philosophy unsettles so many people, even today. Because deep down, we sense he is right. We sense that when we waste years in hesitation, when we cling to toxic comfort, when we numb ourselves with distractions, we are not victims of circumstance. We are fugitives from freedom. This is the dark truth. Most people do not want to be free. They want to be comfortable. They want to be told what to do, given a script, handed a role. Sartre saw how people slip into social masks, the obedient worker, the faithful spouse, the loyal citizen, not because they love these roles, but because they protect them from the horror of naked freedom. It is safer to say, "This is who I am because society made me this way," than to face the vertigo of realizing you could tear it all down and remake yourself from nothing. And yet, Sartre insisted, this burden is what makes us human. To be free is to be condemned, yes, but it is also the only path to authenticity. If you dare to face the nausea, if you dare to accept that your life is nothing but your choices, then, and only then, can you live as yourself. Not as a role, not as a machine, not as a puppet, but as a free human being. Of course, this level of responsibility terrifies us. Imagine if every failed relationship, every wasted year, every betrayal, every addiction, every lost opportunity was not fate or luck or someone else's fault, but your own. That weight would crush most people, which is why most people run, which is why most people will always run. Sartre knew this, and he was merciless in his honesty. The reason most people cannot handle freedom is because freedom destroys the comforting illusion that life is already written. It strips you naked before infinity. It forces you to admit that you, and you alone, must give your life meaning. And that is a responsibility almost no one dares to accept. Sartre's truth is not some dusty philosophy locked in the pages of mid-century France. It is alive in your daily life, in every hesitation, every excuse, every quiet moment you betray yourself. And if you're willing to look closely, you will see it everywhere, in your relationships, in the way society operates, and in the silent battles of your own mind. Let's begin with relationships, because here the illusion is strongest. Most people step into relationships as if they are scripts handed down by culture. You meet someone, you fall in love, you follow the steps, dates, titles, family, marriage, maybe children. It feels like a path you walk, already drawn. But Sartre would interrupt you. There is no path. There is only the choice you make at every step, and the responsibility for it. Think about the man who clings to a woman he does not truly love, because he is terrified of being alone. He convinces himself he has no choice. But Sartre would strip away that lie. The truth is he chooses comfort over authenticity. He chooses to betray himself rather than stand in the raw loneliness of freedom. And so he lives in bad faith, pretending his dependence is destiny. Or take the woman who says, "I can't leave him, I need him." She tells herself she is trapped, but in reality she is free, free to endure suffering, free to walk away, free to rebuild. What she lacks is not choice, but the courage to confront the consequences of that choice. And so she stays, not because of fate, but because she refuses to look her freedom in the eye. This is why relationships often collapse into resentment, because deep down, we know when we are lying to ourselves. We know when we are hiding behind routine, blaming the other person for a prison we ourselves chose to lock. Sartre would say most relationships are not built on love, but on bad faith. Two people colluding in the denial of their freedom, performing roles rather than living as themselves. Now look outward into society. The same pattern emerges. Modern life is designed to shield you from freedom. Every institution, every system, every cultural script whispers the same lullaby. You don't need to choose. We've chosen for you. School tells you what to learn, when to speak, when to sit, when to obey. Work tells you what to do with your time, how much your hours are worth, when you may rest. Government tells you the limits of your life, the taxes you pay, the laws you must follow. Religion tells you how to live, how to worship, even how to love. And if you dare to step outside these boundaries, you are branded a rebel, a failure, a sinner, an outcast. But Sartre would strip away the disguise and say, these systems are not chains, they are temptations. They tempt you to surrender your freedom and hide behind excuses. They offer you comfort at the price of authenticity. They let you say, I had no choice, I was only following orders, when in truth you chose to obey. Think of the soldiers at Nuremberg who claimed, I was just following orders. Sartre would reject this plea. He would say, no, you chose obedience. You chose to betray your humanity for the safety of conformity. And that choice is on you forever. This is why Sartre's philosophy is so threatening to governments, corporations, religions, and ideologies. Because it pulls the mask off and declares, you are never a cog, never a victim, never just a role. You are free, even when it terrifies you. And perhaps nowhere is this more relevant than in your own personal growth. Think of how many times you've said, I can't change. How many times you've told yourself, this is just who I am. The man who says he can't stop drinking. The woman who says she can't break her patterns. The worker who says he can't escape the grind. All of them, Sartre would say, are lying. Because to say I can't is to flee from the truth of freedom. You can change, but change demands choices, and choices demand courage. To stay in the old cycle is easier, safer, more familiar. So instead of admitting, I choose not to change, we tell ourselves we are trapped. But the trap is of our own making. Think about your phone, your distractions, the endless scroll of social media, the binge watching, the numbing comfort of screens. You say, I can't stop. I'm addicted. Sartre would say no. You are choosing to escape your freedom by drowning in noise. Because silence terrifies you. Because in silence, you would face the unbearable weight of your choices. And here lies Sartre's relevance to the modern world. In an age where everything is curated, templated, algorithmically fed to you, his philosophy is a nuclear bomb. It tells you nothing is written. Not your identity, not your destiny, not your future. You are free, and you are responsible for what you do with that freedom. But freedom is not romantic. It is not the fireworks of Independence Day or the slogans of politics. Freedom is nausea. Freedom is waking up every morning knowing there is no script, no higher order, no excuse. Freedom is standing before the abyss and realizing you must leap, and the leap is yours alone. This is why most people reject Sartre's truth. They prefer to live as characters rather than authors, to perform roles rather than confront freedom. They prefer to say, I am this way because of my past, because of my parents, because of my culture, because of my trauma. Anything but the brutal truth. You are free and you are responsible. But here's the paradox. Though Sartre calls freedom a condemnation, he also suggests it is the only path to authenticity. To accept your freedom is terrifying, yes, but it is also the only way to truly live. Because until you stop hiding, until you stop saying I can't and admit I choose, you are not alive. You are only a ghost in someone else's story. So look at your life. Every habit, every compromise, every delay. Where are you telling yourself you can't? Where are you secretly choosing while pretending you are trapped? Sartre's philosophy is not an abstract puzzle. It is a mirror. And when you dare to look, it will reveal the one truth you've spent your whole life trying to escape. You are free, and no one can save you from that freedom but yourself. You have now seen Sartre's truth. Freedom is not a gift neatly wrapped with a bow. It is a weight that presses on your chest the moment you realize no one else can decide your life. But philosophy without action is nothing more than decoration for the mind. So what do we do with Sartre's lesson? How do we carry this unbearable freedom without collapsing under it? The first lesson is this: never say I can't. Every time those words leave your mouth, you are lying. What you mean is, I choose not to. Sartre forces you to replace excuses with responsibility. You don't have to stay in that job, you choose to. You don't have to remain in that relationship, you choose to. You don't have to repeat your destructive habits, you choose to. When you shift language from can't to choose, you strip away the comforting illusions and face yourself in the raw. The second lesson: stop playing roles. Sartre called this bad faith, the act of pretending you are only what society, culture, or even your past tells you to be. The man who says, I'm just a cog in the machine, is lying to himself. The woman who says, I can't help it, I'm just this way, is lying too. Roles are prisons you willingly step into. The moment you see them for what they are, you reclaim the key. You are not a role. You are the author, and every day you write the script. Third, accept the nausea. Most people try to escape the dizziness of freedom by burying themselves in distractions. Endless scrolling, constant noise, routines that numb. But the nausea is not an enemy. It is proof that you are awake. When you feel that terror of infinite possibility, when you sense the abyss opening before you lean into it, that nausea means you are alive. It means you have not surrendered to the comfort of lies. Fourth, reject excuses of fate. How many times have you said, "This is just who I am"? How many times have you heard others say, "That's just life"? These are lullabies, soothing stories we tell ourselves so we can sleep inside cages. Sartre's truth demands you wake up. Nothing is just life. You are free, and your life is the sum of your choices. Fate is the excuse of those who refuse responsibility. Fifth, embrace the solitude of freedom. Sartre warned that no one can carry your freedom for you. Not your family, not your friends, not even God. This is a lonely truth. But loneliness is not weakness. It is the price of authenticity. To walk your path, to own your choices, to stand before the abyss without flinching. This is the mark of a free man. Others may surround you, others may love you, but in the end, the leap is yours alone. Sixth, stop waiting for meaning to appear. Sartre believed existence comes before essence. That means you are not born with a fixed purpose, not stamped with a cosmic role. You are thrown into existence, and only then must you choose what your life will mean. If you wait for meaning to come to you, you will die waiting. You must carve meaning from the stone of your freedom. You must decide. And finally, the seventh lesson, live as if every choice writes eternity. Sartre said you are not only choosing for yourself, but for mankind. Every action, every decision, every moment you choose sets an example of what it means to be human. When you betray yourself, you tell the world betrayal is acceptable. When you choose courage, you light a path for others to follow. Your choices ripple outward. They shape not just your story, but the human story. These lessons are not soft, not comforting, not designed to make you feel safe. They are knives meant to cut through the illusions you've built around yourself. But in that cutting, you discover something deeper. A life that is not borrowed, not scripted, not forced. A life that is yours. So here they are, etched like commandments into the soul. Never say I can't. Stop playing roles. Accept the nausea. Reject excuses of fate. Embrace the solitude of freedom. Stop waiting for meaning. Live as if every choice writes eternity. Sartre's philosophy is merciless, but it is also liberating. Because once you see the truth, once you feel the weight of your freedom, you no longer waste your life pretending. You no longer hand over your choices to others. You no longer cower in the shadow of excuses. You stand, trembling but alive, before the vast horizon of possibility. And though you may be condemned to freedom, in that condemnation lies your greatest chance, to write a life that is truly your own. Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, "Man is condemned to be free." At first glance, it feels like a contradiction. How can freedom be a condemnation? But by now you see it. Freedom is not the soaring anthem we celebrate, not the glittering prize of revolutions. Freedom is the weight pressing down on your chest when you realize no one else can decide for you. It is the nausea that rises when you stare at the infinite horizon of choices and know that every path, every mistake, every triumph is yours alone. This is why most people cannot handle freedom. They don't want the responsibility, the loneliness, the terror of absolute choice. So they surrender. They hand their lives to roles, to systems, to illusions of fate. They numb themselves with routines, with distractions, with borrowed scripts. They would rather be puppets than authors, rather be safe than awake. But Sartre leaves us no escape. Once you see the truth, once you understand that every excuse is a lie, you can never go back to sleep. The mask of fate is shattered, the comfort of I can't is gone. You stand naked in front of your own life, trembling, but alive. And here is the haunting paradox. This unbearable freedom, this dizzying nausea, this loneliness of responsibility, it is also your greatest chance. Because only when you accept it, only when you stop fleeing from your choices, can you begin to live authentically. Only then can you stop being a character and become the author. Only then can you look into the abyss and say, I choose. So tonight, When the silence grows heavy, when the old excuses return, remember Sartre's voice. Remember that no one else is coming to save you. Remember that every time you whisper, "I can't," you are hiding from the only truth that matters. You are free, terrifyingly, unbearably free. And if that truth makes your stomach turn, if it makes you dizzy with nausea, good. That means you are awake. That means you are alive. That means, for the first time, you are standing face to face with the dark truth most will spend their whole lives running from. You are condemned to be free. What you do with that freedom is everything.